Hearts are like ticking time bombs. People suffer from heart attacks or heart failures and pass away all the time. It's a sad reality that Tina Hines from Phoenix, Arizona, knows all too well. But for this mother of 4, death was an eye-opening glitch you'll have to read to believe. When she woke up at the hospital, she found herself unable to speak because of the breathing tubes put in place to keep her alive. So, she motioned for someone to bring her a piece of paper and something to write with. What was she trying to say? Her niece had the answers. Tina Hines had no idea her life was about to change on February 12, 2018, but it did, and in a major way. Her day started out as any other day. She was going to have some fun, too, but destiny was about to throw a major curveball her way. Hines never knew what hit her. It came completely by surprise. She didn't feel sick when she woke up that morning. She didn't experience nausea, headaches, or dizziness. And yet something bad was about to happen. She had no idea that her body was about to give up on her. There had been no warning at all. Hines and her husband, Brian, were getting ready to go for a hike. But neither of them realized they were about to witness something completely unimaginable. Hines had been in perfect health up until that moment. In fact, she worked out on a regular basis and ate pretty healthy, too. But that morning, tragedy struck without warning. Sadly, that wasn't the most startling thing that happened that day. As the Phoenix, Arizona couple prepared for their hike, she collapsed. Her eyes didn't close, and they were rolled back in her head. She was purple and wasn't making any noise or breathing, her husband told azfamily.com. But this was a blessing in disguise. Hines' heart had stopped beating. Her husband panicked, but he knew that there wasn't a moment to waste. So, he reached for the phone and called 911. But he feared the paramedics wouldn't get to her in time. Little did he know that she wouldn't need them. Startled, he dropped to the ground and started performing CPR on his wife. But her skin color hadn't changed and there was no other sign that her condition had improved. Had he lost the love of his life forever? As he tried to resuscitate her, he wondered if he told her that he loved her that morning. Would he ever get the chance to tell her again? Then suddenly, despair turned to joy, but was he celebrating prematurely? He was able to bring her back, but then she slipped away again. Luckily, all hope wasn't lost. Paramedics arrived just in time and brought her back. Then, he felt as if his own heart was being ripped away when her heart stopped again. Would he get to talk to his wife again? From the moment she collapsed to the time the paramedics started working on her, she was brought back to life 5 times. Her husband and the paramedics had done everything they could to save her, but she wasn't really gone, despite her grim status. For all intents and purposes, Hines was categorically deceased. She had been dead for 27 minutes. They managed to get her heart going yet again. But would she end up coding for a 6th time? Once she arrived at the hospital, Hines was intubated and kept on total support. But the doctors didn't know that she had gone on an amazing journey while she was dead, and neither did her husband. When she woke up at the hospital, she found herself unable to speak because of the breathing tubes put in place to keep her alive. So, she motioned for someone to bring her a piece of paper and something to write with. What was she trying to say? Her niece had the answers. A little over a year had passed since Hines died and then miraculously came back to life. On June 18, 2019, her niece, Maddie Johnson, wrote a social media post showing off her heart-wrenching tattoo. She etched on her skin the scribbles her aunt had written on paper. And it took her followers' breath away. With shaky hands, Hines scribbled down a message on Johnson's cousin's journal. "It's real," she wrote. Everyone in the room was confused. What was she talking about? What was real? Then she revealed the truth. Hines got all teary-eyed and pointed up. And soon it became clear to all. In those 27 minutes, her soul had crossed over to the other side. But what had she seen while she was there? Her story is too real not to share and has given me a stronger confidence in a faith that so often goes unseen, Johnson wrote on Instagram. But what did Hines see, exactly? It was so real, the colors were so vibrant, Tina told azfamily.com. She described a figure standing in front of black gates, and there was bright yellow light behind it. But now that she was on Earth, she had some people to thank. Hines was released from the hospital a couple of weeks after her heart attack and near-death experience. So, she and her husband paid the 911 operator, the firefighters and the paramedics a visit to thank them. But one Phoenix firefighter was shocked. Maybe not as much as Hines had been. "We ended up shocking her 3 times on scene and 2 en route," one Phoenix firefighter told azfamily.com. "I've never shocked anyone 5 times. Another rescuer added, "It's one of those calls that none of us will ever forget." I was a witness to a miracle is the way I look at it. But was her afterlife experience real? There's no way to know if Hines' experience was real. Sometimes one can only go on faith. But according to CBSN, researchers at NYU's Langone Medical Center conducted studies on patients who've had similar experiences to Hines, and it turns out she wasn't alone. The researchers discovered that while the brain technically shuts down after someone passes away, it does remain conscious to a certain degree even after the heart stops. But was it all just a dream? A 2013 study on rats at the University of Michigan found that animals experience a surge of brain activity shortly after they go into cardiac arrest. So, in humans, this may be the reason why people have near-death experiences. Hines is choosing to see this as a sign that there is life after death. But is her health still in danger? The reason cardiac failure is so scary is that it can be unpredictable. Even a minor glitch in the body's electrical system can throw the heart's rhythm off balance or cause it to stop completely. In fact, this problem affects 356,000 adults in the United States every year, but was Hines out of the woods? Hines is doing much better thanks to medical science. She now has a defibrillator and a pacemaker to prevent another health complication. She also posts regularly on her Instagram to let her followers know that she's living life to the fullest. If you enjoyed this story, then wait for our next story starting in 10 seconds. Buried treasures and pirates are the kind of thing you hear about in legends and movies. But when Matthew and Maria Colonna Emanuel went digging in their backyard, they discovered that fiction can become a very shocking reality. The Emanuel family lived in Tote Hill, Staten Island. For the longest time, they thought that an unsightly piece of metal that lay in their backyard was just an electrical box. Matthew Emanuel had lived in this home for about 4 years along with his wife Maria and their son. But although they knew every inch of their property by heart, there was one mystery that awaited to be discovered. The Emanuels assumed that the silver box underneath some trees outside of their home was nothing more than an old cable box. But there was more to this box than met the eye, and it was about to change their lives. The family always assumed that the big piece of metal lying in wait in the corner of the backyard was nothing more than an electric box where electric pole wires were kept. Initially, the box was embedded so deep in the soil that no one paid it much attention, until Mother Nature intervened. The rusty metal box was buried behind bushes and poison ivy alongside a fence around the house. Then, a deer came and ate 4 feet of the bottom of the foliage. The ruined trees looked so hideous that Emanuel decided to put bamboo, which has deer-resistant properties, in its place. But he had no way of knowing what he was about to uncover. The deer had weakened the trees, which made them vulnerable to the elements when winter came. With the heavy snow we got this winter, a lot of them were falling down. They were top-heavy, Emanuel told the Advance. Emanuel was once proud of his backyard, and he wanted to restore it to the way it was. But the plants and flowers were a mess and so were the trees. So, he called Bob Foley of the New Jersey landscaping company Touch the Earth Inc. And that's when he learned that the box wasn't really a box at all. The power box had been driving Emanuel and his wife nuts. The object was partially unearthed and ruining the way his lovely garden looked. But when the professional landscapers stopped by to rebuild their damaged land, they were stunned to find that the box contained a long-forgotten secret. The box was more visible than it had ever been before. But what was inside it? It was only a matter of time before curiosity got the best of them, and the Emanuel family finally uncovered the truth. It was obvious that the box hadn't been moved in a very long time, so Emanuel decided to take a closer look. The family could see the rusty box from the deck, the living room, and the kitchen, too. Foley planned on repairing the backyard, so he was eager to get rid of that unsightly thing. But first he had to get rid of the electric box, except it was so much more than that. Foley had decades worth of landscaping experience, so he'd seen some rather bizarre things during his career. But he didn't realize that he was about to see something he had never encountered before. Foley had worked in enough yards to know that big rusty piece of metal wasn't an electric box at all. But the box was in the way and his crew needed to get rid of it. So, there was no sense in keeping everyone in suspense any longer. When Foley pulled the box from the ground and flipped it over, he realized the box was a safe, which meant Emanuel's assumptions were wrong. But what could possibly be inside of it? The Emanuel family hadn't yet discovered what was actually concealed inside the safe. Was there a journal, a weapon, or stock certificates? Why had someone buried the safe in their yard? But when the box was finally opened, it produced more questions than answers. The safe was about 1.5 feet in height and 2 feet across. It also weighed about 100 pounds. Fortunately, the contents inside were even more impressive. The safe had cash, gold and diamonds. They knew that none of these things belonged to them. But what were they supposed to do? Foley and the Emanuels couldn't believe their luck. The zip plastic bag inside the safe also contained jade, earrings and other pieces of jewelry. But although the items in the safe had survived, some of them were badly damaged. The dollar bills were wet, so he set them out to dry for several days. Some of the bills were salvageable, but others were damaged beyond repair. The Emanuels had around $16,000 of usable cash. The extra gems brought the total to about $52,000. But what they discovered next made headlines all over the world. There was a note inside the safe, along with a couple of personal documents all wrapped in a plastic zipper bag. When Emanuel read the letter, he was stunned. There was an address on the piece of paper, and Emanuel was determined to learn who it belonged to. Fortunately, the address was located in the vicinity of his neighborhood. 2 days after the safe was discovered, he decided to go to the address and ask the people there if they were missing anything. It was, after all, the right thing to do. But he hadn't realized that this would get the cops involved. Emanuel knocked on the door, and an elderly woman greeted him. He introduced himself and asked, "I have a strange question for you. Have you ever been robbed?" The elderly woman was puzzled at first. Then she told him something that started an investigation. In 2011, the alleged ninja burglar broke into the elderly woman's house the day after Christmas while she and her husband were away. But when they returned, they found their safe was missing. Had Emanuel discovered the missing link to an otherwise unsolved crime? The safe contained treasures and documents that were very special to the elderly couple. And when it was stolen, they feared they would never get it back. But was their stolen safe the same safe that Emanuel had discovered in his backyard? The Tote Hill neighborhood fell prey to Robert Costanzo, a conniving thief known as Ninja Burglar, in 2011. His stealth made him an unseen menace. And in the span of a decade, he managed to rob more than 200 homes in New York, New Jersey and Connecticut. But was he ever found? Costanzo targeted 160 homes in Tote Hill, Staten Island. The community was mortified, to say the least. But in 2015, cops finally caught the ninja, which put everyone at ease. The office of District Attorney Michael E. McMahon wasn't able to link him to the elderly couple's robbery. But cops did investigate him as his MO was nearly identical to whoever took the couple's belongings. The Emanuel family invited the elderly couple to visit their home and look through the contents they found. The woman cried the moment she saw the jewelry. She spent years dealing with the trauma of losing her treasured items. She never thought that they would be recovered. But would she get to keep it? The Emanuel family managed to bring joy to the elderly couple who had lost their prized possessions several years earlier. But when people asked them why they returned the safe's contents, the answer was simple. It wasn't even a question. It wasn't ours, the wife told CNN affiliate WCBS, to which Emanuel added, "The reward is karma." Good karma.